The story of Gideon, recounted in the book of Judges, begins with the divine selection of an unlikely leader to free Israel from the oppression of the Midianites. Initially hesitant and insecure, Gideon receives a series of signs and confirmations from God which solidify his faith and resolve to accept this mission. The Bible describes in Judges 6:12 how the angel of the Lord approaches Gideon, saying, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." When Gideon gathers an army, God instructs him to significantly reduce the number of his men. This divine instruction is detailed in Judges 7:2, where God says to Gideon, "You have too many men for me to deliver Midian into their hands. Israel might boast against me, saying, 'My own strength has saved me.'" This statement establishes a central theme of the story. Victory will come not through human strength, but through divine intervention. The method of reducing the army is peculiar and significant. In Judges 7:4-7, God directs Gideon to take the men to the river and observe how they drink water. Those who kneel down to drink directly from the water are dismissed, while those who lap the water with their hands are chosen. This selection reduces the army from 32,000 men to just 300. This criterion, although seemingly trivial, carries a symbolic message of vigilance, readiness, and most importantly, the necessity to trust in God above all. With his reduced army, Gideon proceeds to strategic preparation for the confrontation. Instead of conventional weapons, his men are equipped with trumpets, jars, and torches. This choice of equipment, unusual for a battle army, is described in Judges 7:16, which reads, "He divided the 300 men into 3 companies and put trumpets and empty jars with torches inside in the hands of all of them." This atypical preparation not only reflects a strategy of psychological warfare, but also symbolizes the presence and power of God. The trumpets, traditionally used in Israel for summoning and announcement, here serve to create a massive sound impact, contributing to the surprise effect and fear in the enemy camp. The jars, broken at the crucial moment to reveal the torches, represent the unveiling of God's power and light. The lit torches, in turn, symbolize the divine presence and guidance amidst darkness. This divinely inspired plan signals that victory over the Midianites would not come through military strength or conventional tactics, but through an act of faith. Gideon and his men, in obeying God's instructions, demonstrate profound trust, not in their own ability to fight, but in the divine promise of victory. This atypical preparation is a clear indicator that the battle would not follow conventional warfare standards. Instead of depending on physical strength or the number of soldiers, victory would be achieved through a demonstration of God's power, using elements that highlight the faith and obedience of those involved. Gideon and his men, by following these instructions, show unwavering trust in the divine plan, preparing for a confrontation where their victory would be as surprising as the method chosen by God to achieve it. The night had settled over the valley when Gideon and his 300 men, divided into 3 companies, began their silent approach to the Midianite camp. This moment was crucial, and the tension was palpable among the men, aware that they faced an army vastly superior in number. Each group, strategically positioned around the enemy camp, carried not just the trumpets and torches hidden in jars, but also unshakable faith in a divine plan. At Gideon's signal, a coordinated and surprising action was unleashed. The trumpets sounded in unison, breaking the night's silence with a roar that echoed through the hills. Almost simultaneously, the jars were broken, revealing the lit torches, illuminating the darkness with intense, symbolic light. The war cry, "For the Lord and for Gideon," was chanted by 300 voices, creating a terrifying impression of a much larger army. The effect on the Midianite camp was immediate and devastating. Abruptly awakened and confronted with the deafening sound of the trumpets, the sight of the torches, and the war cries, the Midianites were seized by absolute terror. The surprise was so complete and the fear so profound that they fell into total confusion. In this chaos, the Midianites, unable to discern friend from foe in the darkness and disorientation, began to fight among themselves. The fear led them to believe they were surrounded by a large army, and in their panic, they turned their weapons against each other. This self-sabotage was crucial for Gideon's strategy as it significantly reduced enemy forces without the Israelites needing to engage in direct combat. Gideon's strategy was a masterpiece of psychological warfare, leveraging the element of surprise, fear, and confusion. What seemed to be a disadvantage, the smallness of his army, was transformed into its greatest strength. Through this cunning tactic, backed by deep faith in the divine plan, Gideon completely destabilized the Midianite army, setting the stage for an extraordinary victory. The attack not only demonstrated Gideon's military acumen, but also reaffirmed the presence and power of God, working in mysterious and powerful ways. Following Gideon's surprise attack, the Midianite camp plunged into an irreparable state of disarray. The Midianites, confused and terrified, began a desperate flight. This moment was crucial, marking the turning point of the battle and the beginning of victory for Israel. The Bible describes this episode in Judges 7:21-22, where it reads, "Each man stood at his place around the camp, and the whole enemy army ran, crying out as they fled. Gideon and his 300 men, seeing the disorganization of the enemy, seized the moment to pursue the retreating Midianites." Judges 7:23 reports, "Men from Israel were called up from Naphtali, Asher, and all Manasseh, and they pursued the Midianites." This pursuit was a coordinated effort, with neighboring Israeli tribes joining the battle, inspired by faith and the recognition of the miracle that was unfolding. The defeat of the Midianites was sealed with the capture and killing of their leaders, Oreb and Zeb. Judges 7:25 records, "Gideon captured 2 leaders of the Midianites, Oreb and Zeb. He killed Oreb at the rock of Oreb and Zeb at the winepress of Zeb." These actions were not just significant military tactics, but also symbolic, marking the complete subjugation of Midianite power. These events represent more than a military victory for Israel. They symbolize the direct intervention of God in human history, using unexpected means and ordinary people to fulfill his purposes. The story of Gideon and the 300 is not just a tale of military cunning and human bravery. It's a demonstration of God's power operating through faith and obedience. Gideon's victory over the Midianites is a powerful reminder of God's sovereignty and his ability to use the weak and the few to accomplish great deeds. Through this narrative, the Bible teaches valuable lessons about trust, faith, and the importance of following divine direction, even when the ways and methods seem incomprehensible to human eyes.